Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and talk about the last three IDs before we get started with the War of 1812. Today we're going to take a look at the Embargo Act, the Non-Intercourse Act, as well as Macon's Bill number 2. Good band name if you're looking for one. Just kidding. So let's go ahead and get started. The Embargo Act. This is perhaps Thomas Jefferson as president. This is one of his, no, it is his worst decision he makes as president. It's still, I mean, it doesn't even pass the common sense test here. So let's kind of put it in perspective. The year is 1807. Britain and France are at war again, like usual. Napoleon is reaching peak strength here. Now, if you remember back, George Washington had maintained American neutrality throughout the world. You know, avoid foreign entanglements, things like that. Jefferson had tried to maintain that same neutrality in this conflict, but he wanted to trade with both nations. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But both nations were open to trading, but they just didn't want the United States trading with their enemy. All right, so Britain didn't want us trading with France. France didn't want us trading with Britain. So as a result, the United States ships, merchant ships primarily, are being attacked by both Britain and France in the Atlantic. And often the contents of these ships were being seized as contrabands of war. Now, the British in particular, they had a habit of forcing Americans into what we call impressment. Okay? Now, this is when you take an American soldier and you basically impress them into the British Navy. Okay? Now, this was pretty widespread. In fact, approximately 10,000 American sailors were being forced into service on British warships. I mean, these guys are American. They're basically, most are American, I should say. Some of them had, some of them had, of course, been British. Many of them are naturalized. They're American citizens for the most part, almost all of them, and they are being forced into service on British warships. They're basically being kidnapped, okay? So this had to stop. This action had to end. In addition to impressment, you also had an incident take place in 1807 between a British ship and a U.S. ship. Okay, there was a major naval battle, and this becomes known as the Chesapeake Leopard Affair. You had the HMS in His Majesty's service, a British ship called the HMS Leopard, and the USS Chesapeake. Now, the Leopard ended up attacking the Chesapeake, and it boarded the Chesapeake looking for deserters. Now, the Americans on the USS Chesapeake were completely unprepared for battle, and they ended up surrendering rather quickly. With the incident, 4 Americans ended up being taken as deserters, with no evidence that they were deserters. And beyond that, 1 American was actually hanged. Okay, so the British are actually killing American sailors on the high seas. Well, at this point, a lot of Americans are calling for war with Britain, and Jefferson is going to try to force the issue with the British. He demands to meet with them, demands, to have this, heard. The British simply ignore it. They got a lot going on with Napoleon. This is just a minor chapter in their mind of what's going on in the bigger picture. In fact, they even issue new orders to reaffirm impressment. They basically say, not only are we not going to stop, we're going to keep doing it. In fact, we should probably do it more. We need more sailors. Well, a lot of Americans saw the attacks and the seizure of American property as a good reason to go to war. But Jefferson desired to make economic coercion. He tried to push economic coercion through enactment of an embargo instead of going to war. We had already failed politically putting pressure on Britain. So I don't know why he necessarily thought an economic pressure would help. But as I said, this is Jefferson's most failed policy. So an embargo, and this Embargo Act, effectively stopped all exports from leaving the United States. Let me say that again. The Embargo Act stopped all exports from leaving the United States. We're not talking about just to Britain or just to France. All exports. If you had a business on the East Coast and you wanted to trade with anyone, say outside the United States, you could no longer sell your product. What a horrible decision. I mean, this has a completely negative effect on the American economy. The first result is really complete and economic and political failure. Because it's not just people trying to sell their goods. You got to think of every step along the way. You know, think of Andrew Carnegie and the vertical integration there. All the things that go into shipping. The shipping industry is devastated, but all those industries and markets that are related to the shipping. Even the lumber industry that's using wood to make ships. All of these things are just left devastated, and so you have very quick opposition to the Democratic Republican Party. And beyond that, the British love this. They actually are all in favor, because if we're not selling goods to people, they're just going to go sweep up those markets. And in fact, the British end up becoming major trading partners with Latin American countries. Remember, it's 1807. A lot of those Latin American countries have just become independent. So the British love this, which, of course, is the exact opposite of what Jefferson wanted. The second result of the Embargo Act is, as I have there, a complete disregard for the law. Because, frankly, it didn't stop shipping. It did not stop exports. If anything, it increased smuggling, and it increased public acceptance of that smuggling. Okay? Because this embargo, for many people, is seen as a violation of their rights. Their right to sell goods, their right to make their own income. So, this is just a complete and utter failure overall. With the election, I mean, this is an election year too. Like I said, I love Jefferson as the idealist, the philosophical Renaissance man. But man, he made some poor decisions here as president. This is an election year. 1808. The Federalists actually start to gain some ground because of the Embargo Act. Now, Madison is ultimately going to be able to win, but the embargo lasts, and it proved unpopular. And in fact, as one of Jefferson's last acts in office, he will repeal the acts allowing the exports to begin again. But that's still a few years away. In the meantime, while this act is still in place, in 1809, you have kind of an attempt to get rid of the act in some way, kind of offering up a peace deal in some ways to Britain and France, which of course they don't take. The Non-Intercourse Act of 1809. Considering the failure that this Embargo Act was, this was a milder version where they tried to kind of scale back some of those things. We still denied trade with Britain and France, but we opened up trade to other European nations, thinking that would just make everything okay. But this proved very futile because few merchants were really doing anything different, and in fact, it allowed for increased trade to Britain and France because you could do that indirectly now. I mean, if you were able to export your goods, you were going to find a way. You could just stop off in Britain. You don't have to exactly stop the ships from leaving port, which the Embargo Act had done. So, really the Non-Intercourse Act was not what Jefferson wanted. It ended up being very short-lived anyways, unenforceable. It also suggested that if Britain or France, if they basically agreed to lift restrictions or attacks on U.S. ships, that the embargo would be lifted. Of course, neither one of them blinked, and the other downside of the Non-Intercourse Act was that it was set to expire at the conclusion of the next session of Congress. Well, Congress, they don't meet that long. So really, this was a short-lived act that tried to scale back the effects of the Embargo Act, really didn't do so. Well, when the Non-Intercourse Act did expire it was replaced with an even weaker law. We couldn't just get over the fact and say, this is just a horrible idea, we'll move on. Instead, we just had to pass milder and milder acts. Well, up comes Macon's Bill number 2, and when the Non-Intercourse Act expired, Macon's Bill number 2 reopened American shipping to all foreign ports, again, besides the British or the French, who we denied entry to. And it basically said, listen, we'll lift these restrictions if you just stop attacking our ships. Neither the French or the British really care. Neither of them blink again. Well, war seems to be the only answer here. And frankly, it's going to be 3 years before we do end up going to war. All of Jefferson's attempts to solve this peacefully using economic pressure fail, and the only result that we're going to see is actual physical confrontation with Britain in the War of 1812. Well, let's stop and take a look at the overall effects of this new republic, and we're not quite done. We will talk about the War of 1812, but now we're talking about the end of Jefferson's 2 terms, and the United States has entered a much more concrete phase of its history. The legacy of Washington and Adams and Jefferson, this had solidified the precedents of how the government would operate, the place that America would have in world affairs, and also how internal politics would be decided. After the election of 1800, there was an issue. The republic has been established, okay? I mean, this is a positive thing. 3 keys I want to look at before we wrap up here. Number 1, the functionality of the Constitution. Key parts of the Constitution had been tested. We had McCulloch versus Maryland, Madison versus Marbury, and we've established the supremacy of the Constitution. Of course, this would later be a source of contention. We fought the whole Civil War over it. But overall, the functionality of the Constitution is much better than the Articles, of course. The second one, foreign legitimacy. The United States had been independent and recognized by major powers across the world, and America's policies were having real effects in how countries dealt with one another. The economic policies had succeeded and failed to various degrees. Just got done talking about the Embargo Act. But we also saw this with Jay's Treaty, so nations are signing deals with us. We're having a pretty big effect overall. Foreign nations are seeing us as a legitimate power. The third result of this new republic is the establishment of political parties. And as we saw early on, 2 parties are going to emerge, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. And although the Federalist power had begun waning by 1800, this idea of 2 political parties creates an enduring legacy. Even though George Washington had warned us about the effect of political parties and dividing the nation, it does seem to be something that is here to stay, although it will take on different forms over the years as we see the Federalists die off, the Republicans die off, the Whigs. We got a lot of evolution ahead of us. So that wraps up this lecture. Next time we will talk about the War of 1812, which is, of course, our second war of independence. And we'll see the United States get a good victory over the British and establish our independence for a second